Hello there, good afternoon, good evening from another Brit Olam, Noahide World Center interactive live broadcast. We're very happy, those of you who could join us. Tell your friends to log on now. We'll be happy not only to hear the lectures that we have here, we have two very interesting lectures, but we will also be very happy to see your comments and questions so that we can comment on them live. This session will also be recorded and will appear on our website. I know that the last session that we did about a month ago, quite a few people have looked at it, so you will be able to look at this session too. I have two technical announcements or requests before we start. The first one is a request that I have for you. My name is Moshe Goldberg. I'm the English webmaster of Brit Olam. We would like to increase the number of communities that we have on the website. So if any of you there are in a community that could send us a description on our website, there's details of exactly what we need. If any of you could send us a description of your community, we will be very happy to add you to the communities on our website. Just let us know. It's clear on the Noahide World Center website exactly how to do this. You can find it. If not, you can write mail to me or to the site asking how to send the information. We'll be happy to send it to you. The other thing is I wanted you to put aside the date for the next session of this series of internet sessions. The date of the next session is scheduled for January 20th. Sunday night or Sunday afternoon, January 20th. Put aside the date. We will be announcing who the speakers are and exactly what the program is. Let's get to tonight's session. We have two speakers. One is Rabbi Hollander, who we heard last time, but tonight he's talking about a subject which he called "We're Still Here," End of Time Prophecies. After that, we will hear from Yochanan Castellanos, a former evangelical priest who converted to Judaism, and I've heard some of his story. I think it'll be very interesting to listen to. The first speaker is Rabbi Yeshayahu Hollander. He's the foreign minister of the nascent Sanhedrin. Rabbi Hollander learned at Yeshiva Ponovich and Kolel Volozhin. He was privileged to be a student of Rabbi Yitzchak Kolitz, the former chief rabbi of Jerusalem. An interesting thing is that Rabbi Hollander has a degree in theoretical physics from the Hebrew University. He is also a licensed patent attorney. He's been active in Noahide activities since 2006. He attended the Noahide conferences in the United States in 2008 and 2011. He's been active in interfaith activities since 2008. And as I said before, the subject that he will be talking about is "We're Still Here," End of Time Prophecies. Rabbi Hollander.
Good evening. We're still here, yes. It's past December 21st or 20th when the world was supposed to end by so many people. And the media were full of this nonsense.
Can you hear that?
What's going on?
Just go.
And it's amazing how much nonsense can be talked about something which is entirely erroneous. The Mayan people or astronomers or people who dealt with the calendar did not prophesy the end of the world in 2012 in December. They just reached the end of a cycle of their calendar. And they didn't bother going on to the next cycle because it was pretty far off. So they figured to make a few generations, say somewhere time in 2011, maybe they'll extend the calendar. That's all. And people decided on their own, out of their own imagination, that this is the end of the time. And if the Mayan people said so, they surely knew what they were talking about, and so we better prepare. There was a story by James Thurber about that, the end of the world. A fellow comes around to talk about the end of the world, and the end of the world hasn't come. I have a personal experience with fear of the end of the world. When I was a kid, I must have been around 7 or 8, my mother took me from Brooklyn to the Museum of Natural History and the planetarium on the west side, near Central Park. And you used to take the number 8 train, if I'm not mistaken, changed trains somehow when we got there. I don't remember that, but at the age of 8, 9, 10, and 11, I used to go alone every Sunday. I would go to this museum or the planetarium, and at one of the sessions in the planetarium, they frightened me no end. They said that the Earth is about the universe is about 15 billion years, and in so and so many billion years further on, it's going to cease to exist. And I was terribly frightened. What am I going to do in a few billion years? Since then, other people have been frightened by end of the earth prophecies. And the question is why, and what does Judaism think about such things? Well, the reason why people like to be afraid of these. I mean, if you don't like to be afraid of it, why be afraid of it? Why is it part of so many people thinking about the end of the world? You have people in Christianity, and you have people in Islam, you have people in Judaism, and you have all sorts of other people who, maybe religious people, irreligious people, are all worried about think about the end of the world and think it's very important. Well, first of all, I want to tell you it's not important. That's getting to the end quickly. It's not important, but I'll go into a little bit more about that. The issue of the end of the world and the beginning of the world is speculation about that has been going on perhaps as long as human beings exist, since the creation. But it is discussed in the Mishna. In the Mishna, in Masechet Chagiga, it says this. This is the translation. The subject of forbidden sexual relations may not be expounded in the presence of 3. This is chapter 2 of Masechet Chagiga. Nor the work of creation in the presence of 2, nor the work of the chariot in the presence of 1, unless he is a sage and understands of his own knowledge. Strange phrase. It's a unique phrase. Unless he understands and unless he's a sage and understands of his own knowledge. What is his own knowledge? How did he get the knowledge from? His own. Did he go to the Hebrew University and learn physics or cosmology or whatever? No. Probably not. Whoever speculates upon 4 things, the Mishnah continues, a pity for him, would have been better if he had not come into the world. What are these 4 things? To wit, what is above, what is beneath, what before, and what after. Now we're talking about one of the aspects of what is after the world. How is the world going to end? Is it going to end? When is it going to end? Now, on this Mishnah, the Talmud brings a story about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. You may remember that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was the smallest, least important student of Hillel, and he was the person who was taken, the leader who was taken out of Jerusalem towards the end of the siege, and he is the one who asked to set up Yavne, not to set up, but to take the people, the sages from Jerusalem to Yavne, and to continue the Jewish people and Jewish culture from there, since Jerusalem was going to be conquered by the Romans. And this story is about him and one of his students. In Pirkei Avot, in the Essay of the Father, gives a list of the important students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, and it says there the greatest student of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was Rabbi Elazar ben Arach. After mentioning this one is great and the greatness of this and the greatness, but Elazar ben Arach is the greatest of them all. And the story goes as follows, and here I have to translate from the text. I didn't find the translation. It's interesting that the story there is on the internet the translation of these pages, and this is left out. Maybe we'll understand why it's left out. Okay, the story goes as follows: there was a Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He was riding on his jackass, and going along the way, and Rabbi Elazar ben Arach, the student, was on his donkey. And he called to him, going with him, and he said, Rabbi, please teach me a bit about Maseh Merkava, about perhaps you could say, the structure of divinity. Okay? And he said no, and he said to him, I told you what it said in the Mishna, that you don't teach this except in the case when the person who asks is a person who has an understanding of his own. So Rabbi Elazar ben Arach said to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, he said, please allow me to speak before you some things that I understood on my own. And he said, okay, go ahead. But before letting him continue, he got off the donkey, and the student said to him, Rabbi Elazar ben Arach said, why do you get off the donkey? And he said, it's not right to talk about such things when you're riding. You sit. And he sat down and he took his talit and covered himself with it and said, now we'll discuss this issue of divinity. Then Rabbi Elazar ben Arach started to talk about his understandings, and fire came down from heaven and burnt all the trees around them. No, it encircled all the trees around them, this fire, and the trees began singing. What did they sing? They sang Psalm 148, praise the Lord from the earth, you see monsters in all deeps, fire and hail, snow and vapor, stormy wind, fulfilling his word, mountains and all hills, fruitful trees and all cedars, beasts and all cattle, creeping things and winged fowl, kings of the earth and all peoples, princes and all judges of the earth, both young men and maidens, old men and children, let them praise the name of the Lord, for his name alone is exalted. His glory is above the earth and heaven. And he hath lifted up a horn for his people, a praise for all his saints, even for the children of Israel, a people near unto him, hallelujah. It would have been easier for me to say this in Hebrew, I know it by heart, but in English I don't know it by heart. Anyway, you read it for yourself again after this talk is over, the next talk, and you'll see how appropriate it is that the trees sing this praise when Rabbi Elazar ben Arach is talking about the divinity. And after the trees were empowered with the trees, the Talmud says an angel responded to them from within the fire and saying, yes, this is good. He talked well, Rabbi Elazar ben Arach. And Rabbi Yochanan got up. It doesn't say he taught him anything. He said, this guy knows enough on his own. I don't have to. Okay, the trees say, and the angel said, and the teacher said, fine. We concur with what he was teaching. And he said, blessed is God of Israel, who gave such a son to Abraham that knows and understood on his own these ideas of the divinity. And he blessed him personally. And he said, blessed is Abraham, that Elazar ben Arach is a descendant of his. Okay, this all sounds very beautiful. Now, actually, even though Elazar was the top student of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, we have a very little from him. We know practically nearly nothing that he has said in any situation. Even here, we don't know. We know what the trees said, and we know what the angel said. We don't know what he said, and we don't know any more about what the teacher said besides this. And it said that later on, a bit further down in the Talmud, it says this: 4 people went into the paradise, into the orchard, and these are Ben Azai, Ben Zoma, Acher, Rabbi Akiva. And Ben Azai died from going into the Pardes is a euphemism for the mysticism. Ben Azai died. Ben Zoma went crazy. And the third one, Acher, this is not his name, but we call him Acher because he went and joined the Romans. And Rabbi Akiva was the fourth one. He came out alive. We have some knowledge of what Acher did. Very little knowledge of these other two, Ben Zoma, Ben Azai, and Rabbi Akiva. Of course, we know we have most of our Talmud is the Talmud of Rabbi Akiva. What happened to Rebbe Elazar ben Arach? We have that in Yalkut Shimoni. The source of Yalkut Shimoni is not known, at least not to me, and I have a book at home, the source of Yalkut Shimoni. Yalkut Shimoni is a book of Midrashim, and here it tells a story about Elazar ben Arach. It says in article 573, if anyone wants to look it up. Rabbi Yochanan had 5 students. As long as he was alive, they sat in front of him, and when he died, they went to Yavne. That more or less fits in with the chronology as we know it. He died 2 years after the destruction of the temple, and that's where they went. When they went to Yavne, Rabbi Elazar ben Arach went with his wife to Syria, to Emmaus, perhaps. Not exactly clear, the name there doesn't matter. A place which has good water and beautiful air and beautiful place. And he waited for them. He thought that they would come to where he is. And in the end he saw they don't come to him, so he went to them. And he wanted to go to them, and his wife didn't let him. And she said, "Look, you're the best one of all the students. They should come to you. They all need you. You don't need them, they need you." Well, so he listened to her, and he didn't go. Some years later, they went to visit him, and he couldn't even read properly in the Torah. He was alone, and he wasn't part of the community of people who learned. So, even though he was the greatest of the students, and he was great not only apparently in Halacha, from which we know very little, I think there's one place he's mentioned, or 2 places in Talmud in questions of Jewish law, we have very little of it. In general, whenever I talk to Jews or Noachais, or anyone, I talk against the study of mysticism. And now I read you a text of the Rambam, which will tell us why and will tell us about the end of the world prophecies. Okay? The Rambam is in the last chapter of his epic work, the Yad HaChazakah, not the Guide to the Complex. That's another important work, but his book on Halacha. And his book on Halacha has many things in it which are not Halacha. And he says in his introduction to the book, this is a summary of all the knowledge up to his time. It's a summary, so it includes things which are not Halacha. Now he talks about the Messianic age. Of course, we assume that the Messianic age is before the end of the days. Yes, I mean, after the end of the world, we're not going to have the Messiah. The Messiah must be before the end of the world. He's got to be in this world, okay? So he says this: do not presume that in the Messianic age, this is the translation of Chabad, do not presume that in the Messianic age any facet of the world's nature will change, or there will be innovations in the work of creation. Rather, the world will continue according to its pattern. Although Isaiah states the wolf will dwell with the lamb, the leopard will lie down with the young goat, these words are a metaphor and a parable. The interpretation of the prophecy is as follows: Israel will dwell securely together with the wicked Gentiles, who are likened to the wolf and the leopard, as in the prophecy of Jeremiah. A wolf of the wind shall spoil them, and a leopard will stalk their cities. They will all return to true faith and no longer steal or destroy. Rather, they will eat primitive food at peace with Israel, as Isaiah states, a lion will eat straw like an ox. Okay, so some of this, even Maimonides here in his interpretation, he is a little literal, what they will eat. First he says it means they won't make war with Israel, now he says they will eat. In any case, similarly, other messianic prophecies of nature are metaphors. In the messianic area, everyone will realize which matters were employed by these metaphors and which allusions they contain. This was the first paragraph of this chapter, of this last chapter. Second paragraph is the main, where I want to put the emphasis. Our sages taught, there will no difference between the current age and the messianic era except the emancipation from subjugation. This translation says the emancipation from our subjugation to the Gentile nations. It's not an exact translation. It's also an interpretation. The text is Shiabud Malchuyot Bilbad, subjugation of kingdoms. That will be the only difference. Of which kingdoms, by whom, doesn't say our subjugations. There is another, let's not go into that. A simple interpretation of the prophet's words appear to imply that the war of Gog and Magog in Ezekiel will take place at the beginning of the Messianic age. Before the war of Gog and Magog, a prophet will arise to inspire Israel to be upright and prepare their hearts. As Malachi states, behold, I am sending you Elijah. He will not come, this is from the Talmud, he will not come to declare the pure, impure, declare the pure, the pure people, impure, or the way around. He will not dispute the lineage of those presumed to be of proper pedigree, etc. Rather, he will establish peace within the world, as it says in Malachi, he will turn the hearts of fathers to the children. There are some sages who say Elijah is coming, we see the coming of Messiah, etc. Regardless, I'm skipping a little. Regardless of the debate concerning these questions, neither the order of the occurrence of these events or their precise detail are among the fundamental principles of faith. A person should not occupy himself with the Agadot and homiletics concerning these and similar matters, nor should he consider them as essentials. For a study of them will neither bring fear of God nor love of God. Similarly, one should not try to determine the appointed time for Messiah's coming. Our sages declared, may the spirits of those who attempt to determine the time of Messiah's coming expire. Rather, one should wait and believe in the general conception of the matter as explained. And he said in paragraph which I skipped, but one sentence is of importance, all these and similar matters cannot be definitely known by man until they occur. For these matters are undefined in the prophet's words, and even the wise men have no established tradition regarding these matters except their own interpretation of the verses. Therefore, there is controversy among them regarding these matters. Maimonides advised us not to try to interpret the prophets, because even they don't agree among themselves from what we do understand. We know a very important person. Something wrong here, nothing coming on the screen.
Hit the...
Okay, it doesn't matter.
It's
It's going
okay.
through
You're doing
okay. I don't know.
Doing
In any
fine.
case, I'll continue. You don't even know when the end of the show will go on. Maybe this is stopped. You don't know. Okay. In any case, we cannot know. The prophets themselves could not really understand. I talked about this, I think, in a previous talk about the difficulty with understanding prophecy by the prophet himself and certainly by other people. And so the interpretations by people like, say, even Newton spent his last years trying to understand Daniel, the end of the world according to Daniel, and many other people have, and said, this is all very frustrating, but it doesn't take us anywhere. It doesn't increase our understanding. It doesn't increase our love of God. It doesn't increase our awe of God. It's not where we should be. People sometimes like to think about the end of the world. Also, get into depression when they think about the end of their own life. This happens usually with younger people, because older people get accustomed to the idea they're not going to be here so long. But younger people very often get depressed when they think about the idea they're not going to get there. We're still, I think, fairly young in the astronomical determination of the life of this universe, and certainly even of the life of this earth. And I don't think we have to get worried about the end of times at all. What we definitely have to deal with is what we should be doing in our times for the benefit of the world and in the service of God. Thank you.